Okay, let's do it. Let's get into the season of Rick and Morty. Now, I'm going to leave the comments on just because I figure there's going to be some people with some stuff to say, and I'm genuinely excited to hear what that is. So, I've said it last season. I'll say it again here. I am a big fan of Rick and Morty. I think the show has done some interesting stuff. I think it's very creative and brilliant at times, and it does certain things that I'm very impressed with that I think is rare to see in fictionalized storytelling. It takes a lot of chances and actually can genuinely tell a great story. That being said, Dan Harmon still holds the record for like one of the creators I don't want anything to do with. Like, I would love to work on a lot of things in Hollywood, but I don't want to work with Dan Harmon because I think he's arrogant and he's annoying and he's just this big personality that has to have everything done his right way for this perfectionist style. And because of that, it comes across as that he's better than his audience and he talks better than his audience. He knows better than his audience. And I don't like that energy. I also don't like the energy that Rick and Morty exudes, this idea that it is smarter than its audience, that because of the things it says, you don't understand it, or if you don't understand it, it's not good. And I think Rick and Morty does exude that energy a lot of the time. And I think there's some good stuff about that because it shows you it's not pandering, but also shows you that, like, hey, we're better than you. Like, the people that create this, the things we were saying, we're better than you. Rick Sanchez is not a good character. He's not someone you should idealize or fantasize to be or look up to in any way. And I think the context of that kind of gets lost on some people. They see this really cool guy that can do anything, and he, makes light of like certain social situations or just the world at large, and suddenly you have like an ideology from him. But he's a lunatic maniac guy who shouldn't be idolized. And I think that stuff, like the larger than your audience, this character who we shouldn't like look up to, but we do, blinds people to some of the faults of Rick and Morty. Now this season, season 5, I think for the first time in the show's history, now there's been some hit or miss episodes since season 1, but for the first time in the history of Rick and Morty, the cracks in the show's storylines and plots is really starting to show. This season, I think, missed the mark more often than any other season. There is a lot of just really weird episodes in here, but not the good kind of weird. Like, there's certain moments in previous seasons where you're like, this is a really weird story, but they make it work. In this one, it comes across as less that you are, talking above your audience or you know better than your audience. It sounds like you're talking down to your audience in this season, where it's like, we've done 5 seasons of this, we know our audience, we're going to make fun of them in a way we haven't before, where instead we're like, we're smarter than them, we're going to say, you're dumb for watching this. And I might be reading into that way too much, but so much about this season just didn't feel like Rick and Morty. It didn't. The characters lost that, like, spark. The stories missed the mark on these really interesting, complex situations, and they became something that Rick and Morty has done since the beginning, but it lost its flair, is the parody. Rick and Morty is no stranger to the parody episode or the reference episode, but when that's all you're doing, you lose what makes Rick and Morty great, and suddenly just becomes like, oh, you're doing the thing that Futurama kind of did. And I love Futurama, but you see those certain episodes where it's like, that's the parody episode, that's the one where we're like referencing this, and suddenly it doesn't hold like the cachet that the previous episodes did. And I think that really sucks. As much as I'm a mixed viewer of Rick and Morty, I think for a show that's been around for 5 seasons, it's been consistently interesting. But just having this season just not deliver that many great episodes, it's weird. And even when it does deliver a pretty good episode, it's because it's referencing something else. It's just like, oh yeah, here's the crime one, here's the Voltron one, here's the Submariner character, here's like, your Terminator one. All these stuff we've seen done before in other mediums. Rick and Morty's parroting here, and it just doesn't hold a candle to what the show could be. And, as good as some of the later episodes are this season, they're pretty fine. Like, there was like this idea that this season was going to be very, heavy in like its canon and its lore. And there's a thing going on in like the later half of the season that Rick kind of says about like, you want to jump the gun? Fine, here's everything about me. Is something I talk a lot about, and I really try to explain to people. It's kind of hard to explain. So just because you call something out, that doesn't mean you're not doing it still. And just because you're like, oh, doing this is jumping the gun. Yeah. I know you're smart enough to know that you're jumping the gun, but calling it out doesn't make it a joke. It just makes you like, oh my god, look how stupid and like needy our audience is that we have to do this. And that's not cool. That's not fun to see. And it just goes to show you, like, this entire season has missed the mark because it feels like it's talking down to the audience where it's like, okay, well, here's, the Captain Planet one. You guys like Captain Planet? There you go. There's our Captain Planet one. We're making references and stuff. You get it. You like us still. There's an entire episode dedicated to Morty using a machine to release himself and making an army of evil sperm. And you're like, that could be kind of funny, but it's gratuitously stupid and annoying, and it just culminates in this weird storyline that you're just like, why did we do this? It's not funny, it's kind of gross, and it's not that interesting, and that ties into another episode later on that, again, it's just a reference. The Voltron episode is just a reference. It's not creative, it's just doing like, the Goodfellas thing with Voltron. It's not that original, it's not that fun. And, the show hits those beats back and forth all the time, but this season, none of it, really worked. You just felt like, all right, it's coming to this point where we can't really go up and build ourselves up anymore, so we're going to be doing, this basic thing throughout it, and I don't know if that can sustain itself. I think this season, more than any of them, you saw the cracks showing where it's like, yeah, we've done so many of these, we're tired, it's, maybe not tired is the right word, but it's like, what else can we do? Then lose our momentum and hopefully build it back up later. But this season, the episodes just aren't as funny. These storylines just aren't as creative. It does this thing again, and I don't understand why Dan Harmon has to do this, where they just throw in the pot shots at Marvel all the time, or the MCU and stuff. I get it, but calling it out again is not a joke when you're doing pretty much the same thing, which is giving the fans what they want. It's not genius in that way. And it's weird that this show just didn't stick that landing. And I know there's people that probably love it, and they're like, this is really smart, but I'm like, is it? You compare some of the highlights of this season. To me, there's 2 episodes in particular this season I would consider classics. Those are the first 2 episodes because they stick with that classic theme of Rick and Morty, where it's the side story, and the episodic stuff for Rick and Morty is what makes it work. When you do the connective stuff or the reference stuff, it loses its momentum. It doesn't work for that show, and you just see everything coming together. Suddenly, it's not as funny, it's not as creative, it's more pandering to its audience, and it's talking down to its audience like, yeah, we already have your money, so shut up and watch a Thanksgiving special that's pretty basic. That's almost exactly the plot of an episode later on in the season that involves a different freaking bird. There's literally 2 episodes this season, one dedicated to turkeys that's taking over the world, which is similar to the crows taking over the world in essence of this season. What? How does that happen in a show that is supposed to be this creatively driven think piece? I'm not criticizing the writing staff or anybody, I just think this was a lazy season. Not in terms of animation, not in terms of creativity, I just think everything worked the way it should, but it didn't come together in that aspect. It just wasn't a whole piece. It's just, we know what we're doing, but we're kind of getting tired of it. So here's some easy stuff. You'll love it. You'll think these episodes are silly, but you'll watch us for the big lore-heavy final episode, or the ones where we go inside the mind of Bird Person, and you'll fall in love with us all over again because we're giving you what you want. So you won't care about the Sperm one or the Captain Planet one. Those won't matter as long as you got the stuff with Bird Person and Rick's history. It's lazy, it's annoying, and I don't know who to blame for that. I want to blame Dan Harmon for just hating his audience. Again, he's a smart guy, but he's somebody who looks temperamental and tired all the time and just has that egotistical energy of, the troubled artist who's so genius and unrespected by everyone that he cuts everybody off just to make his thing perfect. And I don't know if it's him who is doing this to the show, but it didn't come together in this full perfect circle that the show has before. And if you want classic Rick and Morty, this is not classic Rick and Morty. This is just a shadow of what the show used to be. It used to be something smart and brilliant. Now it's you get it. Everyone shut up. Here's your random crap. Here's your good stuff. Watch our show. You're going to watch it anyways. We don't have to try too hard. which sucks because there's good stuff in Rick and Morty, but there's also a lot of crap in Rick and Morty, and just having it all come together in a season that never fulfilled its own momentum really lets you down. So I don't know my thoughts on this series as a whole. Rick and Morty, I think, is something you should look at like The Walking Dead, where it's like, start off strong, we built our audience came in, they're going to stick with us for the long ride. So that certain point comes in where it's like we lost that momentum or our will to keep doing this, but the money keeps coming in, so let's just do what we can and then rip shit up later. I think that's Rick and Morty, and it's kind of sad to say that I don't know if this show can keep up this forever. I think eventually, with this season showing us the cracks and the faulting of the story and the plotting and the characters and just like everything about what the show could be, maybe 2 more seasons, I think it could lose its entirety and just be something boring, uninteresting, and basic. So it might have jumped the shark, but more often than not, it's just bad. It's just bad writing. It's just bad creating stuff, and there are certain moments where you see the cheapness in the animation, which sucks because the show, it should look good all the time. So I'm going to stop before, I could ramble on about this forever, but don't watch it. I don't recommend watching this season. I think there's a lot of weak points, some big points, but not a lot. So Rick and Morty Season 5, I am going to give a 5 out of 10. And thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.